the important lessons that I've learned through my career is, again, never say never attitude, continuous improvement, pushing the boundaries. Never try to remain in your comfort zone for a long time. You can be in your
Hmm.
comfort zone for some time, but not for a long time, because it stops or hampers your progress.
Not everyone makes the news, but behind every growth-driving experience, product, and transformation are experts who shape the outcome. Welcome to Behind the Growth, a podcast for digital leaders and those aspiring to become one. Each episode features a candid conversation with a remarkable individual. Join us as we focus on their struggles, wins, and lessons learned you won't find anywhere else. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Behind the Growth. I'm your host, Imran Mian. Today, we're celebrating Zain Abbas, a distinguished expert in AI and machine learning, specializing in predictive models for business, marketing, customer experience, underwriting, and risk management, and engagement within financial services. With extensive experience in managing R&D projects, programming applications with big data components, and working in modern data environments, Dr. Abbas is known for his leadership skills and passion for innovation. It's great to have you with us, Zain.
Thank you so much, Imran, for the intro. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be with you.
Wonderful. So, to kick things off, perhaps you could start us off by taking us through the journey from where you are today, or actually from where you started to where you are today, and what initially motivated you to pursue a career in AI and machine learning, and particularly in the financial sector.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, so I was always fascinated by data and insights and analytics. So I'm a hardcore computer science background. So started my bachelor's in computer science and then started as a web developer in my alma mater. So while I used to do data, always fascinated me. I was exposed to machine learning and AI initially in my bachelor's and then more in depth in my master's. And that's where I decided that, yeah, this is the field where I want to go. It also resonated really well with the pickup of big data and all the enhancements and advancements that were coming across in terms of like the deep learning advancements, the big data terminology usage, and all of those things. So it really worked well. And that was how I entered into this area. Specifically, in my master's, I was exposed to a data set that was related to a jaundice disease, which was very rampant in the society back home.
Hmm.
And
Right.
that's the problem that I started to work with in the master's. And then I, yeah, continued on from there.
Amazing. There's always a turning point, when you really think about, do I want to pursue this path or that path? Because sometimes, what you study in school doesn't necessarily translate or transition into your professional career. But it seems like what you learned in school, you were able to apply and really focus and enhance and grow in that field.
Yeah, that's right. I think one of the main things that led me to this field was while I was doing my job, like I was kind of in a comfort zone. I was doing my web development, a bit of development on the desktop side, but I thought of, okay, let's just try doing masters, trying going deeper into the field, and going for a masters and putting my job on the side was probably one of the most important moments in my career, because when I went into masters, I was exposed to this kind of area which I'm kind of working on up until today. So that was
Hmm.
one of the key moments that I decided to go out of my comfort zone and work in this area. Secondly, when I was about to complete my coursework, there was a decision I had to make, that do I want to go to into the PhD or continue working in the industry. So over there, I decided that no, I should go further into machine learning, understand what soft computing is, where we can use it, and how can I have a positive impact on the society. So that was the other important moment in my career, I would say. And then finally, transitioning to the industry happened when I moved to Canada. So these were, like, I would say, the key moments in my career.
Turning points.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Everybody in their journey has opportunities and challenges. What would you say were some of your biggest challenges and that you faced, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah. So when I moved to Canada, as I mentioned, I was pretty much working in the academia before, right? Working with
Yep.
industry projects, but not on that scale, right? So when I came to Canada, the biggest challenge I faced was while I was searching for my job, I also had to make sure that I had a sense of the scale that I'll be working with, right? So yeah, that was one of the bigger challenges that I encountered. I addressed that by trying to learn quickly, trying to adapt quickly, like always asking for help, never being shy of asking for help, like learning from everyone. That is something that I think really helped me.
Yeah, I think you raise a good point. Even in my previous conversations with our guests, one thing that seems to be like a common theme for folks who have completed their PhD is transitioning from academia to the private sector. There's a lot of like worry people have, how would you transition and things would be different. Yeah, obviously in the private sector, things are much faster or fast paced. You're absolutely right about that. Zain, reflecting on your career, is there anything you would have done differently now that you've gone through the journey? What would it be, if anything? And what lessons can our audience learn from your experiences?
Yeah, okay, that's a tough one. So, if I reflect on my career, again, as I mentioned, like transitioning to the industry was one of the bigger challenges, and that happened when I came to Canada. So, I actually
Mm-hmm.
came to Canada in 2016, but I had an opportunity to come here about 5 years earlier. But because of some of my personal obligations, and then since I wanted to pursue a PhD, I didn't make that choice. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe like that is something that I could have done differently. However, then I might not have had a PhD, right? So yeah, I think I'm happy with the transition and with the path that I took. And in terms of the learnings for the audience, the important lessons that I've learned through my career is again, never say never attitude, continuous improvement, pushing the boundaries. Never try to remain in your comfort zone for a long time. Yeah, you can be in your
Mm-hmm.
comfort zone for some time, but not for a
Right.
long time because it stops or hampers your progress, right? Always learn to delegate if you want to grow, trust people, have empathy in yourself. And as you pointed out, like perfection isn't everything, right? Perfection is important, but it's also important to deliver things on time, right? Because like at times we basically just continue to hold on to something which might not be 100%, but we delay that moment, and when the moment passed, it might not be useful.
Makes sense. So let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about your current sort of responsibilities. Let's dive into a project or product that you worked on in terms of predictive modeling, and maybe give us a walkthrough of a particular ALML project.
Sure. So I can talk about a project that I've worked on in the past, and especially because it resonates with something that's really rampant in our industry these days, which is generative AI.
Mm-hmm.
So this is about a
Right.
couple of years ago when I used to work at a bank, and what we had to do was we had to support the executive communications team in their financial analyst calls. So as you might know that every quarter, all the big financial institutions, they report to the market where financial
Right.
analysts are there, and based on whatever happened in the past quarter, what happened, and then what do they foresee. And then this
Mm-hmm.
helps them their stock price, their recommendations of okay, whether we should buy this or we should not buy this stock, right? So it's a really
Mm-hmm.
key moment for every financial organization every quarter, right? So
Right.
our task was to just look at some of the historical presentations or those calls and see what insights can we drive out of it, and then help our executives do it in an even better way, right? So
Interesting.
the biggest challenges that we encountered there were, so like success was not clearly defined, right? Because this was something that we were trying to do for the first time. There was not a
Mm-hmm.
lot of reference material available that okay, what's a good way of approaching it. Yeah, we knew NLP, we knew how to extract insights out of text, but again,
Mm-hmm.
since the success wasn't clearly defined, this was a challenging thing. And then to get the insights and reach and have them reach right to the top executive, it's always a challenge in organizations. So these were some of the challenges that we encountered, and the way we handled them was Again, we looked at a couple of years of those calls, right? They were all provided to us in text form, and then we use some natural language processing techniques to understand and to gather some insights out of it. For example, okay, how long are the speeches that our executives are making? How do they compare with other industry executives? Similarly, what sort of terminologies are we using? What's the sentiment like? Is it that a particular executive is not displaying the sentiment that we want to display through their tone, through the terminologies that they're using? So these were like some of very important insights that we're able to extract. Similarly, the next phase was how can we try to predict what sort of questions would come across to the executives, right? And this was a really interesting task because GPT was really like, so GPT 2 and 3 were there at that point in time. So it wasn't really
Right.
advanced and something which was really novel.
Hmm.
So I still remember that the first time we did it was Q2, Q4 of 2021, I guess. Yeah, about 4 years ago. So yeah, in the first run, we were able to predict almost half of the questions about a couple days ago than the actual call. So yeah, that was a
Oh
really
wow,
big success. Yeah,
50% accuracy.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
pretty interesting.
Mhm.
Please continue.
Yeah, so the way we did it was we looked at again historical patterns of, because these financial analysts, they are same. So there are like 10, 15, 20 financial analysts who attend all the calls across industry, and we looked at the patterns, like what sort of questions do these analysts generally ask, right? And then
Hmm.
we were given the transcript of what the executive would be talking about maybe like 2 to 3 days in advance, and then
Hmm.
looking at the historical transcripts and the questions, we use GPT to predict what sort of questions can we anticipate with this transcript. And as I mentioned, it was able to predict a lot of interesting ones.
Yeah. That no, that's fantastic. I guess my next question would be in terms of any challenges that you encountered during this predictive modeling exercise. If you would like to highlight any of the challenges that you came across.
Yeah, so getting data was a challenge because these transcripts are available like for some organizations, might not be readily available for all the organizations, and then to label the topic of the questions is was a challenge because yeah, you can get the transcripts, but okay, to associate that, okay, this question belongs to this topic,
Hmm.
we did some clustering, but again, since it's going right at the top level, we had to be really precise about, okay, which topic do we associate this particular question to. So these were again some of the challenges. And again, the bigger challenge was maybe not for the development team, but actually for the communications team to take those insights and then communicate it to the executives, like to the CEO and CFO and
Right.
CRO, and make them inculcate those learnings into their speeches or the communication style that they're using, because that's something that's difficult to do, right?
Yeah. I guess my next question is around, was 2 year enough for a data set to be able to make those predictions,
Uh,
or you needed a larger sample size?
I think 2 years was a good data set to start with, especially since there are a lot of financial institutions out there, right? So we
Hmm.
were looking at about, we were focusing on just 5 or 6 banks, but like if you want to include, you can expand it using US banks or using insurance companies as well, right? So
Right.
I would say that 2 years was initially a good data set to start with. Secondly, you can always enhance the data set as you go along, right? So, for example, in your first iteration, you come up with insights, you share it with the business or with the comms team, and if they feel like, yeah, this is something that we want to take on, yeah, that's good. And if not, they can provide you feedback that no, we think that this is lean on this particular area, and then you can always enhance that particular area in terms of
Right.
additional training data.
Interesting. And how much of this exercise was automated versus manual exercise, like labeling data, etc.?
Yeah, again, so that was another big challenge. So initially it was like kind of manual because somebody helped us get all the data and then put it into the notebooks and all the other mechanisms that we had. But putting
Mm-hmm.
it into production was a big challenge because we had to build some pipelines to get the additional, like if we want to train the model again, we had to get that data. And even if we don't want to, we had to kind of build a system where next quarter's transcripts can be uploaded, and then the other additional fields that we were using, they had to be uploaded, and then the model had to do its work. So operationalization and productionization was another challenge.
So this was a couple of years ago, Zain. If you had to do this again in today's time, how would you do it differently? And what sort of, I know now, at the time it was ChatGPT or GPT 2.0. Now we're almost GPT 5. So what changes would you make and how would things be better or different?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure they're already doing that.
Yeah,
And so again, since GPT has become so powerful, I think we would be leveraging those services that OpenAI has. Similarly,
right.
since we can upload text directly, it wasn't possible at that time.
Mm,
What I would do is one important area that I think we were missing at that time was whatever happens in the economics market, in the financial market around that time, and recent history is also really important in these calls, right? So for example, if Bank of Canada increases interest rate, the bank
mm-hmm,
has nothing to do with it because there's a regulatory body who's doing it, right? But
right.
that would have an impact on your results as well as your risk appetite, and all the other things, or your clients largely, right? So one thing that I would do is take these economics articles and directly upload it to ChatGPT to make sure that it incorporates whatever is happening in that scenario. And then whatever it spits out, it takes that into account. So adding that to the context of the GPT.
Makes sense. So let's broaden the topic a little bit. With all the, I mean, in the last 18 months, so much has changed and evolved when it comes to Gen AI and other forms of AI.
Yeah.
What trends do you foresee in AI and machine learning, and how are you preparing to meet up the upcoming challenges?
Yeah, so the way industry is progressing, I would say that okay, we'll be seeing lots of automation and automation and automation. A lot of things will be automated. And in terms of other trends that I see, one thing that's not happening currently, not to that extent, is so again, yes, generative AI is rampant. It's being used in a lot of different use cases, but I still see that there is gap in interconnectivity of like these use cases, right? So we are kind of using it in silos, and those silos aren't necessarily communicating with one another. So one
Mm-hmm.
trend that I definitely foresee is that increased connectivity. So for example, applying it in one use case, and then those learnings or those whatever the impact is passing on and bleeding into other use cases. I think that's something that would happen. So kind of like Gen AI in a ubiquitous sort of a way is one thing that I see happening. I see a lot of edge computing happening in the future because as devices get, like, as IoT is more and more advanced and into our lives, I don't see a lot of huge models being deployed in small devices. So edge computing would help using miniature sort of models right there and then for instant decisioning for the clients. So I think I see
Right.
that happening a lot. More need for explainability, transparency, bias and fairness checks, all of those things. So I think these are some of the trends that are upcoming. And in order to prepare for them, yeah, you would always need like those advanced data science skills, statistics, programming. But I think what you need to blend to it is business knowledge, ethical AI, a lot of these things.
Since you're a subject matter expert on predictive modeling, if you were to make a bet on one of these trends, and I'm not going to hold you to it, of course, what would you make your bet on?
I think edge computing is something that I would make my bet on. Like I imagine a lot of computing, and it's starting to happen already, right? So we have those Meta AI in WhatsApp already injected, right?
Right.
So more of
Hmm.
these sort of things, and not just in our cell phones, but in all the devices that are around us. So a lot of automation, a lot of like smartness attributed to it, with the models actually not connected to anything in the cloud, but doing it within that device.
Makes sense. So, in your current role, you manage a team. I wanted to ask you if you could share your personal sort of philosophy on leadership and management and innovation.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I've always tried to lead by example because that's what I've seen my successful leaders do, right? As I alluded to, like continuous improvement is something that I always try to do myself and as well as for my team. I'm a firm believer of growing with the team. So like you grow with your team. So as you are trying to progress into your roles, your
Right.
team should be also progressing in their roles. If you want to progress, you will never be able to progress until you have a good replacement that you've trained yourself, right? So I'm not somebody who would tell you, okay, to hold on to things or being territorial in nature, because I think that's something that hampers organization's progress as well as your own progress. So I'm truly a firm believer of like sharing is caring. So you share your knowledge, you grow, and it would always help you with your progress.
Amazing. Everyone, in their career, professional career, in their personal life, sort of has as a mentor or somebody who influences their thinking and their career path. Do you want to talk about anyone who may have helped you in sort of choosing a direction and a career path that you're on? And what lessons, or what lesson did you learn from that, and that you might want to pass on as well?
Yeah. So I don't have like one mentor, but I had like tons of
Hmm.
mentors during different stages of my life. So like, and again, I
Right.
don't think I'll be able to name all of them, but I remember like
Absolutely.
starting in grade five, my grade five teacher was the first one who was able to motivate me and show me that, yeah, Zen, you can do it. And yeah, it was a really important to do something at that stage of my life. And then in the college and high school, I had mentors who told me that I could teach, I should teach, and that, like with teaching you learn a lot, and that's what I've seen. So I think a lot of my things that I've learned has been because I've been teaching, working with students, working with my colleagues in the academia. That has helped me a lot. Similarly, like my university professors, my managers in my current role or my previous roles, like I've learned a lot from them, and not
Hmm.
not just not just the people who I interact with, but people who might not be directly interactable for me, but for example, people that I see have had profound impact on the society, on the like working overall good of the society. So yeah, I try to learn a lot from all the good people around me.
That's good. Continuous learning, as you mentioned in the beginning of your conversation. Are there any books or resources that may have significantly shaped your professional outlook and that you could recommend to our listeners?
Yeah, so again, piggybacking on what I said in the previous one, I try to follow a lot of industrial leaders like people like Andrew Wang or Jeff Hinton or Fei Lee or people who are active on Twitter. So I'll use Twitter a lot, but just to learn and to understand where the industry is going, what the top experts of the world are commenting on, saying, talking about different things. So that's one of the important resources that I always try to allude to. Other than that, like those blogs, KD Nuggets, Medium, Kaggle have been like really instrumental in helping me learn and be where I am currently.
We're coming up on our time, Zane. I want to ask you one last question. Looking ahead, as things are so fast paced with the AI and machine learning, are there any recommendations you have for the folks that are in this space or are aspiring to get into financial sector or become like data scientists or data engineers and excel in this field?
Yeah, I would say blending blending of your advanced analytics, data science, machine learning knowledge with business acumen is something that is
Hmm.
still really scarce. Like you might not believe me, but again, there are really few people in industry who actually know how to blend the two things together. So I think that's a skill that as an aspiring data scientist or at whichever level of your career you are, if you develop that skill, that will take you a long way. Similarly, based on all the automation and trends that are upcoming, creativity is something that would really help you, right? So
Mm-hmm.
as creativity is something that would be really difficult to replace by generative AI. So like make sure that whatever you are doing, you are trying to be creative, you are trying to blend and solve business problems and not trying to make the most techy models out there, but the models that actually solve a business problem. And finally, always stay up to date with the trends, with the latest AI trends that would always keep you ahead of the pack.
Well, Zain, it's been a pleasure learning about your journey and insights. Your experiences are incredibly inspiring and enlightening, especially for our listeners looking to navigate the complexities of AI in general and in banking and insurance in particular. Thank you so much for joining us today. And of course, to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to join us next time on Behind the Growth as we continue to explore the fascinating stories behind the leaders shaping our technological future. Until next time, this is Imran Mian, wishing you all a healthy, inspired, and growth filled day ahead.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to Behind the Growth. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow along on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. This podcast is brought to you by Mobile Live, a team of digital experts bringing intelligence and efficiency to how businesses sell, serve, and save. For more episodes of Behind the Growth, please visit mobilelive.ca/podcast.